sort of stiff knotless knot created using our Illusion fluorocarbon. Working again using the same principle, it is very, very effective and highly underrated. Definitely worth a look on your water.
You don't see many people using mono or fluoro hook links these days, do you?
No, Illusion and the fluorocarbon in general, people are sort of caught on for as real lines.
Oh, very much so, yeah. But for hook link materials, not so much.
No, they haven't quite got it yet.
I think in clear waters like the one we're fishing at the moment, that extra edge of invisibility is a huge advantage, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly. If you lay this in the edge in clear water and put it alongside, perhaps, you know, the earlier rig, the braided one that you tied.
Yeah.
The comparison would frighten the life out of you.
Yeah, that gives a big advantage in that department, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And probably because it's a bit stiffer, even more tangle proof.
I think tangle proof and also harder for the fish to eject.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So all in all, again, very, very simple to tie, yet highly, highly effective.
Okay. Well, we're going to show you another little animation, show you how to make one of these. Take a 30cm length of Illusion fluorocarbon of the breaking strain of your choice and tie a small overhand loop in the end before trimming away the tag. Take the end of the Illusion and pass it through the hook eye so that it exits at the front, as you can see. Place a boilie onto the hair, and this will allow us to get the exact length we require. About 10mm between the bend of the hook and the bait is right. Start your knotless knot whipping down the shank of the hook, ensuring each coil is neatly placed in front of the other. 7 to 10 turns is generally sufficient. When that whipping is completed, take the end of the hook link and pass it back through the hook eye again so it exits the front of the hook, as you can see. The other end of the hook link is tied using a figure of 8 overhand loop knot, trimming away the tag end, and then placed inside an anti-tangle sleeve. This allows us to use the quick change swivel presentation, as you can see on the front of an inline lead system. In clear water, the Illusion fluorocarbon provides very, very good camouflage and is difficult for the fish to detect. The slight stiffness to the hook link prevents tangles, and this is a very versatile, good all-round presentation. Following on from those two versions of knotless knot rigs, I'm going to show you a rig which I've used a lot over the last couple of seasons. It's a rig that really evolved to deal with really finicky, shy, cautious big carp that I was fishing for. The rig is, although it looks like a pop-up rig, it's not. It's a bottom bait rig, and you can see I've whipped the Cortex material to the hook using a knotless knot, but this is covered with some shrink tube. Now, interestingly, or unusually, the hair is held around the hook, the bend of the hook, to just below the barb with 2 pieces of tight silicone tube. I'll explain more about that in a moment. But probably the most notable part of the rig is this rather large ball of rig putty, which is just below the hook. Now, in conjunction with a bottom bait, which is very important, and the hair exiting the hook just below the barb, you get a very, very fast turning, aggressive hooking mechanism. Now, I know it looks a bit unorthodox and maybe even a bit clumsy, but the first time I tried this rig, I caught some tench, which in itself was quite unusual on the water I was fishing. That really surprised me, and that's usually a good sign, isn't it?
Real good sign, because people don't realise that tench are so tricky to hook.
They are, aren't they?
They
very
really are.
riggy.
Yeah. If you're catching tench, then your rig's spot on.
Definitely, yeah. So that really sort of led me to believe that the rig was something a little bit special, and I've used it a lot. I've caught carp to nearly 40 pounds on this, and very cautious, shy feeding fish. You can see the mechanics of the rig very clearly when you move it even across a flat surface. You can see I haven't even moved that a millimetre, and the combination of the weight of the putty and the weight of the bait pulling the point down cause it to catch hold very, very quickly. So One of my favourite rigs this. You won't have seen it in use hardly if any at all on your waters, and have a look at how to tie it. Pay attention, it's a little bit tricky, but you'll get the hang of it. Take a 30cm length of Cortex and remove 7cm of the outer coating using a thumb and forefinger. Double the soft supple section over and tie an overhand loop knot into the end. Trim away the tag end, and then using a splicing needle we add 2 pieces of 0.5mm silicone tubing onto the supple section. These sections need to be around 2mm in length each. Next we thread the Cortex through the back of the eye of an Armour Point SSC hook, ensuring the Cortex exits through the front, as you can see. The tricky bit here is to place the silicone sections over the hook point and round the hook bend like that. That traps the hair, as we saw earlier. Hair length is also critical, so we place a boilie on and try to get around 20mm is best between a bottom bait and the bend of the hook. Once we've got the length of the hair right, we can start the knotless knot whipping. So we take the soft section there and start the knotless knot, forming it down the shank. Once that's completed, we thread it back through the hook eye, again so it exits the front of the hook. Again, we've got about 20 to 25mm remaining of supple section below the hook eye, and we're going to slide on some 1.2mm shrink tube over the top, and taking a splicing needle through the front we create the liner, pulling the hook link out through the front of the shrink tube. As you can see, there's a short supple section just below the shrink tube where it exits, which is dead right, that's all we want. That's then shrunk down over steam and curved at the same time. That creates a very, very aggressive hooking angle. If you haven't got enough supple section, as you see, you can pull that back, and you generally want about 10 to 20mm below the shrink tube of exposed inner core. The other end of the hook link can be tied, as I prefer, to a flexi ring swivel with a 5-turn grinner knot, or as shown here, using a figure of 8 loop knot and a quick change swivel arrangement. Where the coated section finishes and the supple section begins is where I like to place the ball of high SG tungsten putty. Again, as we said earlier, that should be about 20mm from the end of the liner where it exits the shrink tube. That's the finished rig in situ. Again, though a big fish presentation, it's very, very effective at hooking just about anything that goes by, a bit different to anything else that they generally come across.
Now, this next rig is 360 rig. Currently very popular and getting a lot of exposure, and hopefully I'll show you why. As you can see, it looks a little complicated. There's swivels and rings and float stops, but don't let that put you off. This rig is very, very effective. The reason the carp finds it so hard to eject this